Technology is advancing faster every day. Today's threat is always changing, and we need to stay ahead of it to protect ourselves. So, how are we ensuring that future soldiers will be an advanced, decisive weapon against these constantly changing threats? We know that the horrors of a real-world battlefield are a long way from their virtual versions, no matter how realistic you think games are today. However, the gaming industry's relationship with the military has been getting steadily closer. First up, the need for gaming technology for soldiers. Today's soldier is a vastly different creature than the soldier of the past. Besides being physically fit, he needs to be tactically and technologically proficient, and able to make lightning-fast critical decisions in high-stress situations. So, how are we turning young, inexperienced soldiers into intricate fighting machines? Through the power of simulation and gaming technology, of course. Colonel Harold Buell Jr., program manager at Orlando's Army Research Lab, talks about how it's always going to come down to human performance and understanding what needs to be done. He highlights the need for the ability to replicate environments that soldiers face on the field, to challenge soldiers in training effectively. There's a lot of cool technology that's becoming available, especially when you take a look at the gaming industry. The military has been using simulation and gaming technology for training and mission preparation for centuries now, so simulations aren't really a new thing. Any training that a soldier does that isn't actual combat is technically a simulation of some sort. Even when they're on the field taking part in live training, that's still simulated combat. Gaming technology has just allowed them to make more of their available training time effective. This is important because future operational environments are going to be pretty difficult for soldiers. The things being asked of our armed forces, technology is going to be the key enabler there. Dan Goldenberg, a U.S. Navy veteran and current runner of the Call of Duty Endowment, says, "There's absolutely a deep affinity to gaming among those actively serving and young veterans, whether it's by training officers, changing public perception, or because of their close ties to veterans." He adds that that connection is not going anywhere. Next, we have what wargaming looks like. Years ago, military commanders would plan, prepare, and test their tactics on dusty old maps. They would shift wooden models around on the ink and parchment, with the models representing the movement of their troops. Today, they play video games instead. Well, kind of. Modern gaming technology allows generals to do something similar to what their historical counterparts did, just in a more technologically advanced way. The fundamental part where video gaming technology has become so incredibly powerful and useful is its ability to recreate all of the complexity of the real world in a simulated one. Gaming software programs that have been developed today allow real-life warfare scenarios to be recreated virtually and explored either from a bird's-eye view like you would see in a real-time strategy game, like in Company of Heroes, or from a first-person perspective, like in Counter-Strike. From the effects of cyber attacks and disinformation to population demographics and infrastructure, all of the things affecting modern warfare are channeled into the software and directly impact how situations play out. This is so much more than just troop placements and movements. As we know today, threats can come from anywhere and at any time. It's extremely difficult to understand how they're going to evolve and the impact on the battlefield. It's also very difficult to plan and train for these problems. Decision makers are enabled to try out ideas, test strategies and new equipment, and train troops to deal with these ever-changing environments and situations. Very quickly, this can help soldiers understand how things impact each other. Other than that, gaming technology is also being applied to current real-world operations. What this means is that it's providing advances within the orchestration of operations as well. And now onto advertising and promotional campaigns. From visiting conventions to using games as an over part of their advertising campaigns and regularly interacting with people on streaming platforms, it's becoming clearer by the day that top officials believe that the millions who play war games are a key demographic to interact and connect with. The whole idea is to bridge the gap between the military, most of which is locked away in their barracks, and the public who they serve. Today, we see soldiers regularly sharing their gameplay sessions online, showing off their skills, chatting with the public, and building a community of viewers and loyal followers. The military has come to realize that there's a distance and disconnect between them and the public, and consequently, they've understood the importance of closing that gap so the general public can understand what they do. Obviously, there's a difference between this kind of outreach work and straight-up recruitment. The outreach work allows soldiers to interact with people who are then encouraged to ask them, the soldiers, questions. So they aren't actively recruiting, it's just growing an understanding and making sure that people know all they want to know about the people protecting them. The intention isn't to take people to a career fair. If people are interested, however, then the soldiers can point them in the direction of actual recruiters. computers. But the main purpose of the streaming soldiers on Twitch and other streaming platforms is to get beyond the mystery and misunderstandings surrounding the military. Up next, military-themed video game support for military charities. Here's another example of the growing relationship between the gaming industry and the military. Companies that profit from military-themed video games can be seen fundraising for and supporting military charities. The Call of Duty Endowment, CODE, for example, was set up in 2009 and works with veterans to try to find jobs after their service comes to an end. An admirable effort. The game took its inspiration from the actions of men and women in uniform, so it seems only right for them to give it back, especially considering the fortune that the franchise's publisher makes from it. It's no surprise that it covers the running costs of code. The surest way to help veterans transition to civilian life is employment. It's something everyone needs to get by. If you've got a job, other challenges like mental health issues are a lot more surmountable. Now for how the Army has been luring civilians through their virtual Army experience. The Virtual Army Experience, a traveling exhibit of the U.S. Army, was touring the country a little over a decade ago. They would stop at amusement parks, county fairs, and air shows. The Army, which collected information from the thousands of people who play the game, stated that it was an innovative way to reach a new audience. But some critics don't really like this style of recruitment. Back then, even though the Army met its goal of adding 80,000 new soldiers, it was still faced with a tough recruiting environment. Parents are a lot less likely to encourage their children to consider military service today. So video games like the Virtual Army Experience gave the Army a new and innovative way to relate to the public, while presenting an opportunity to shape their tastes. The Army spent around $9 million building a total of 4 versions of the game. It cost $9.8 million in 2007 to operate the exhibits. One of the exhibits included a 19,500 square foot exhibit that consisted of Lieutenant Colonel Randall Z. Guards saluting children as they passed and posed for pictures. Those who wanted to try out the game were asked for their age, address, phone number, and email. The information was then entered into a database. Players were then asked about whether they would be interested in joining or learning more about the Army, before being filed into an air-conditioned trailer filled with computers and gaming consoles, where they waited to be briefed. A sergeant joined them in the trailer to explain the mission. Genocidal indigenous forces had attacked international aid workers, and it was up to the players to protect them. Players then got to enter a dark, inflatable dome where the video game was projected. So why exactly do we love playing at war? For the challenge and satisfaction of our thinking and outmaneuvering our enemies, of course. Humans by nature love competing. We want to be better than those around us, and we want to prove our abilities. People also prefer having a relative advantage over an absolute one, meaning they want to be smarter and better looking than those around them, for instance, but not necessarily the smartest and best looking in the world. We want to be better than our peers, and that's just a fundamental human trait we all have, whether we like it or not. So when you play war games, where the goal is to outsmart other players through a combination of strategy, foresight, and logic, you aren't really concerned with how good you are overall. You just want to be better than the person you're competing against. Another reason we love our war games so much, aside from the fact that they put our powers of logic, planning, and strategy to the test, is that they appeal to our most basic instincts. War games produce a cocktail of stress hormones like noradrenaline, cortisol, and testosterone. These are the same hormones that would be released into our bloodstreams if we were in actual combat. In a real-life situation, these hormones would be used by our bodies to create a fight-or-flight response. However, in games, they make us find the game more engaging. Well, that's all we have for you guys today. Thanks for watching.